So this article here, this is a Filipino lawyer traveled to the United States and became a victim of the ongoing gun violence in America that seems to be non-stop with no end in sight. And apparently people in Congress, especially in the United States Senate, either don't know what they're doing or unmotivated or couldn't care less about their own constituents. So here we have it here. Filipino lawyer dead after random shooting in U.S. John Albert Laylo, a Filipino lawyer of Leni Robredo in the Makati City Board of Canvassers, fell victim to a random shooting in an Uber ride to the airport in Philadelphia on Saturday, June 18th. That's just a couple days ago, at 4 a.m. He died at 10:33 a.m. on Sunday after fighting hard for his survival. There's a picture of Mr. Laylo here. He was a lawyer for the Vice President, Leni Robredo, and the Board of Canvassers. Was gunned down in an alleged random shooting on his way to the airport in Philadelphia. Police say a 36-year-old man visiting Philadelphia from the Philippines is dead from a single gunshot wound to the head. Police confirmed the victim is John Albert Laylo, a government attorney from the Philippines, according to the country's consulate general. Police said Laylo and his mother were in an Uber at 4:10 a.m. Saturday, driving from University City to Philadelphia International, when as many as 15 shots were fired into the rear window and drive. So, Laylo had been in Philadelphia since June 9 to visit a cousin and was set to return home on the day of the shooting. His mother was also injured during the incident. And you got some tweets here on Twitter about the shooting. Okay. John Albert and his mother Leah were supposedly going to Chicago, Illinois to visit his grandfather's grave when the shooting happened. He was brought to Penn Presbyterian Medical Center. Leah Laylo described him as a good, smart, generous, loving, caring son. My son has a lot of dreams, a lot of plans, hopes, and everything. He's gone now, she said. I can't explain the pain, the heaviness I have in my heart. It took me hours to post this because still I can't believe this happened, she said. I do not want to get into the technicals, but know that my brother fought very hard to be with us. He was listening and is driven by all our prayers. His time on earth may have ended, but his legacy will live on forever, said Althea Laylo, John's sister. John Albert was also former staffer of Senator and political prisoner Leila de Lima, who called for justice for what she described as a brutal and senseless act. Okay. There is no place for this type of violence in the world. The perpetrator must be held accountable And these types of disgusting crimes must be put to an end. Unfortunately, let me just say this here. Unfortunately, in the United States currently, people put guns and money above everything else. Those are paramount. And when you listen to the arguments given, about the Second Amendment right, you know, Second Amendment rights, that was written, I think, maybe probably 1786, when it was adopted to the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, sometime around there. And back in those days, the guns that people had were like muskets, while one bullet at a time. So if you shoot at somebody, you have to load again, nothing like what we have now. And I seriously doubt that the framers of the Constitution intended that every Tom, Dick, and Harry, if I may use that term, should go around walking around with a gun, And keep in mind too, back in those days, there were no police, no 911 that you can call to say somebody is at my door, what have you. So yeah, back in those days, you needed to defend yourself. And then you only had 13 states too. So much of America back then was wild territory. Some of it owned by the French, some owned by the Spanish, as you go out west, like Louisiana, for example, and those areas, like Missouri, all the way up to the Dakotas, were owned by the French. And then you have like California, what is Texas now, Arizona, Utah, New Mexico, all those areas were not even part of the United States at that time, So yeah, if you ventured out there, you were in hostile territory. You may be going through like native territory. So yeah, of course, you had to defend yourself, arm yourself. We don't live in that world today, And the only reason when we seem that though we live in such a world is because people decide to make it that way. You see, when you look at stuff like in New Zealand, for example, where that guy killed I think it was 52 people. He went some mosque, killed some Muslim people. They passed a law right away. You can't own those kind of weapons anymore. Australia also. They had something similar. Guy went around shooting people. No, you can't. They actually brought back those kind of weapons. England too. England had like a mass shooting, I believe, in a school. And you can't own those kind of guns. The handguns too, I think they had that issue too. Only America, the only country that's left in the world where you have, people are not really safe in this country. Because when you think about it, if you go to the mall, you don't know who's going to be having a bad day and decides to shoot. If your child goes to school, right, your child is 10 years old, 9 years old, 8 years old, they belong in school under a law, That's the law in this country. You can't say, oh, I don't feel like going to school. I don't belong in school. No, you can't if you're a child. So if your child belongs in a place where the government says that your child has to be, then your child should be safe. That's my argument. Your child should be safe. Your child should not have to be worrying about some stray gunman coming in and shooting up a classroom. And this has happened more than once. That's the problem, And you would think in any sane society, something like that, where people go around killing innocent children, The last time I think it was like 26 people killed, 20 kids killed up in Connecticut, and they were even younger. They were like, I think 5, 6 years old kids. You know, in most other countries, that would be the first and the last time something like that would happen. You know, because people would put, you know, they would put more value on their children than on guns or on something called the Second Amendment. But whenever you try to talk here, people tell you about the Second Amendment, the Second Amendment. In the Second Amendment, if you read the Second Amendment carefully, it mentions for the security, right? And that's the security of the state. They mention that a well-regulated militia, that the people who own these guns, who exercise the right of the Second Amendment, should be part of a well-regulated militia. Show me an 18-year-old boy who is part of a well-regulated militia. See? So the Supreme Court got it wrong, and I'm going to call them out on it. When they decided, yeah, you have the right, your Second Amendment or what have you. No, you don't. They got it wrong, because there is no way in hell that somebody who is 18 years old is part of a well-regulated militia. And if you want to be part of a well-regulated militia, you can join the National Guard, or maybe one of the other armed forces. You know, like you got a number of them. You got Navy, Marine, Air Force, Army, all that stuff. If you're really into guns, you can join those legally. But no, these people who go out and buy these guns, many of them have criminal intent. And you see, after that, there was another guy who tried to enter one of these summer camps in Texas, the same state, where these kids were killed. And luckily, they were able to stop him. You see? So, you have people out there right now who are planning something like this. And that's the way they want to find glory, to associate their name. And the people who keep talking about the Second Amendment, well, okay, so when were you a member, right, of a well-regulated militia? None of these people are. None. It's really sad that this man traveled here all the way from the Philippines to see his family, and that he died like this because he was in an Uber and somebody was shooting, and obviously they probably were shooting at somebody else, not necessarily at him, because they don't know him. He happened to be passing by, and this is how people get killed. We had a woman, I think she was like 60-something years old, up in the Bronx, just walking home from work. She got killed. People were shooting. And there was a young girl, I think like 11 years old, coming out of school. She got killed. A boy eating in the car, backseat of the car in Brooklyn. He got shot and killed. You know, this is non-stop. Even this weekend here, up in the I think Manhattan, is it Manhattan or the Bronx? About 9 people got shot. 1 got killed. Out in Queens, some other people got shot. It's like every weekend, you know, every weekend. And you have to be sick and tired of this. And I hope people can be sick and tired of this too, and join in and complain, because we have to get letters out there and make our voices heard, because we can't live like this. We just cannot go on living like this. You can't even go to church. Yeah, there was a guy went to a church. This was last week, Thursday. He shot and killed 3 elderly people in the church, and he's not even young. He was like 73 years old. He killed 3 people. And this is a place where they give like free food and so forth. And he used to go in there, I believe, and get food. He went in there and killed these people for no reason. Well, these people were like in their 80s, like 83 years old, 84 years old, and so forth. And then we had the guy up in Buffalo. He went looking, hunting, scoped the place out, killed 10 black people because of this so-called theory of reclaim or reclamation or something like that. And not that long ago, we had some man who killed. He went into a church in California. I think it might have been Los Angeles area. And this was over politics, because the people in that church, they belonged to a Taiwanese audience, and I believe he was from mainland China or something, and he lived in Taiwan, and he disagreed with their politics or what have you, and he went in there, and luckily they were able to stop him, but he killed a doctor in the meantime. So these stories are never ending. I mean, you can go on and on and on and on with gun violence in America. You're not safe. You travel to America to visit, you want to see your family. In this case, this man was going to Chicago, I believe, to visit his grandfather's grave, and look at that now, Sadly, he's going to be in a grave. This is really ridiculous, This has really got to stop.